just a chance to regroup and relax.
I can only imagine. Yes.
Yes. Awesome. All right. So I have a lot of information for you today.
All right.
Um, so I jumped into your ads yesterday and was poking around to the best of my ability. Now, granted, I am not a Google expert, so I kind of went where I could. And then this morning, I actually roped in our Google manager for about an hour because I was like, what's going on? Like here, and here. So I have a ton of information to relay to you, and I'm going to try to walk you through it as I talk you through it too. But again, she was like buzzing around, clicking here, there, and everywhere. And I'm like, dude, you got to slow down a little bit. Like,
yes. I know that feeling. Amanda does the same thing to me.
Yes. Okay, so you can relate.
Yeah, I sure can. She's a lot faster.
All right. So there's very similar problems on both platforms. So I figured, I would just walk you through sort of what we noticed. And now, I don't know how or who set these up for you, but there are just like basic standard of practice type of things to comply with Google's, like, the way they operate that we would want to immediately start off just to get you structured, like basic housekeeping type of things.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
So right out of the gate, when it comes to locations, typically how we approach this is we bust it down per state. And you can even get more granular on that level by going to either county, city, zip code, stuff like that. So you can get really narrowed in. The way that you guys have it structured right now, unfortunately, is kind of giving Google some contradictory directives. So for instance, you've got the targeted location where you've got a couple states listed in here, but then you also have a blanket United States. So Google is kind of like, okay, I don't know what to do with this information because you're giving me two different sets of directions. So now I'm just going to sort of serve it to the broader scope, which is the United States. And while you do have some bid adjustments on these particular states, you've also still got that blanket that's sort of preventing the ads from being as productive as they could be by removing the United States and then busting it down individually on a state level and then sort of tailoring the campaigns from there. In addition to that, you have no exclusions other than Vermont and South Carolina. So we weren't quite sure about the strategy of excluding Vermont and South Carolina. I took the assumption that maybe the ads just weren't performing all that well, so that's why the exclusion. But again, without additional insight on, directly who set that up, that's just speculation. However, it's also serving to the rest of the world. So by not having the rest of the world excluded, you still have the potential to capture kind of like a bunch of garbage.
Right.
Because it's irrelevant traffic.
Right.
When it comes to ad schedule, you guys have no ad schedule in place. So basically your ads are serving 24/7. Typically our approach would be to break this down very granular and put them into blocks. So that way, as we start getting tailored data, we can determine what time of day, what day of the week are the best performers, reduce the ad from irrelevant or underproducing and reallocate that to overproducing to kind of give you more bang for your buck.
Right. Okay.
There's also no bid adjustments for the most part. There's a couple calls in here for interactions, but there's no bid adjustments or bid exclusions on demographics. So age, gender, income, household, the whole 9 yards, which can be very beneficial when you have a product that is typically to a certain section of the population.
Right. Okay.
Because I noticed that on quite a few of them, you're getting a lot of clicks for like 18 to 24, which can't imagine that would be like your target demographic.
Right. No.
So there's just some, again, basic housekeeping. This is representative on both platforms.
Okay. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Now, when we go into the campaign levels, actually, so I just have this one particular one. Let's go to all campaigns. So when you take a look at your overall campaign funnel, there are quite a few things in here that can be tweaked especially one to combat the cannibalization that you guys have going on with both.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Spring.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, assumption here, speculation. I would assume that in a business like yours, where you have two competing, almost direct competitor companies under your own umbrella, you would want to segregate them out so that way they're performing independently with
Mm-hmm.
minimal crossover.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bunch of different ways that you can do that. You can structure it where each company is allocated particular products that are high performing,
Right.
exclude them from the other one.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
they're acting as independent entities, capitalizing on as much traffic and ad spend as you possibly can without basically competing for clicks on the same stuff, increasing your costs both sides.
Right.
When we move into performance, there's a couple things that are odd with the way that the ads are structured. First and foremost is that you have your bidding allocations and your target ROAS is set up on a portfolio level, which basically is an indication to every single ad that these are the parameters that you want the ads to work within. And as we were flipping through each individual ad, now granted, we did not go through every single campaign. We just kind of did spot checking to see if it was universal, and it was. What that does is that it puts boundaries around every single campaign. So you're in some cases you're limiting the performance, and you're spending money with no conversions, which is a waste. So we would recommend that you remove the portfolio allocation and put that on an individual campaign level. This allows you complete control over your ad spend. And from there, we did notice that you have quite a few in here that are just wasting money. Like they're either not meeting the parameters of what is structured within the campaign itself. It's spending money without converting. And now granted, it's, anywhere between $30 and $250, but I mean, $30 to $250, it adds up over time. So you would want to just kind of toss the ones that aren't performing out, start reallocating that ad budget to the high performers so that way you can increase your ROAS, increase your revenue, and just kind of pour gas on those high performers.
Okay.
And again, that was universal for both platforms.
Got it.
And let me pop into my notes here because she went way in depth on a lot. We spent like an hour and a half going through everything.
Thank you for your time.
You're very welcome. So let's see. The PMAX shopping ad that is retargeting a customer list is basically limited to retargeting that particular customer list. So with the parameters that are set up on that PMAX shopping campaign, it's only directed right to that list, which can be performative. However, you may find some additional success by retargeting also website visitors, or maybe people who added something to their cart but forgot about it. You do have an additional opportunity to kind of break that out a little bit. And you can also structure those ads individually. So that way you can monitor the performance and the adjustments on that very particular directive that you've given it. She also said that one of her biggest recommendations right out of the gate, if we were to take over your ads, is that we would break them down by very individual product lines. So that way you have a clear data-backed decision or data-backed information to make like performance decisions on very particular products versus groups of products, because not all the products within the groups that you've got structured right now are performing.
Right.
So you would want to have some more control over, again, that ad spend and that performance and the target ROAS.
Okay.
So the next thing she called out was the shopping for your branded. Her recommendation was to swap that over to a search. So that way you can capture in those high performative SEO key terms that people are searching for you, and you're not limited to just a shopping campaign. It would just basically expand your net a little further. And you can also A/B test those two side by side. If one happens to be doing better than the other, then you've got a clear indication like, all right, cool, I'll take my ad money and put it back, behind what's working versus what's not.
Okay.
Let's see. Funnels, ad targets, we talked about that. ROAS is hindering the performance on a lot of the ads, simply because it's on that portfolio blanket versus very narrow niche.
Okay.
Another recommendation she had was that there are a lot of campaigns in there where the target ROAS is only set to $2, but the directive on the CPC is $1.50. So like you get one click pretty much, and then you're done.
So one more time, the target ROAS $2 versus $1.50 on the parameters.
CPC, correct? Yeah. So there's just kind of like there's a bunch of just contradictory directives within Google, which after looking at your performance versus your spend versus your conversions, and then digging in deeper, that kind of explains why some of your ads just aren't performing the way that I would assume you would want them to. And then there's also the ones that are only performing at like half of the daily value that you've given it. So there's basically, all in all, her suggestion was to wipe it all out, keep only the highest performers, adjust the parameters, allow them to resonate with Google, and then of course going in and creating a very beefy exclusion list on each particular platform to prevent it, or at least we can't say that we'll prevent it always, but we can at least reduce the cannibalization. And you should start seeing, a pretty healthy return and a lot more performance. And then as Google learns, then you've got a ton of data on how to properly position. And then you start layering in additional ads once you get those top performers, like really performing. So there was just a lot of, there's a lot of things that you can do, a lot of things you can do, or should do. And her suggestion was if we were to take both on at the same time, that we would spend quite a lot of time with you mapping out the particular performances to be able to segregate the two platforms. So that way, you're getting more into like that 3 to 5 RX versus, or the 3 to 5X versus, the 1.5, because you've got some in there that are doing really well and they're doing like a 10X, but then you've got other ones that are in the same ad group that are only doing like a 0.7. So it's just one of those things where we want to be able to get you that granular information so you can make very targeted decisions on performance.
Very good.
Any questions?
No, all clear.
Okay. And then I turned around and did just an SEO poll for you.
Yes.
For on-page technical, I did both sites. So I do have that information for you guys as well.
Cool.
Because organic traffic is free, so why not capitalize on it when you can?
Of course.
Let me pull that for you real quick, and I'll just quickly touch base on these. Where'd they go? There's my foot shop. There's Petafix. Okay.